Good evening. This is the November 27th meeting of the East Long Meadow Town Council. I'll open the meeting now with a pledge of allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We ask that you keep our first responders and our servicemen and women around the globe in your thoughts this evening. Thank you. In accordance with Mass General Law, this meeting is being taped, and I have to ask if there's anyone in the audience who is also taping. If so, please identify. Seeing none, we'll continue. The first item, or the third item on our agenda is public comment, and we have two residents tonight who have asked to speak. The first one is a discussion of East Long Meadow split precincts. Ms. Yukunis, please come to the table if you wouldn't mind and state your name and address for the record.
Yes, Catherine McInnes, Spade Arden, number 36. That would be the district, Hampden District 2 side of the street.
Okay.
And that's really what I wanted to find out about, as much as you guys might be able to fill me in. Why we even have to be such a small town, why we even have to be split into different districts, why our precinct 1 is the only precinct in East Long Meadow that's not with the first Hampden District and Eric Lesser. I'm just curious why we have to be separate.
Well, I'm going to lean to the town clerk, but having been a social studies teacher at the middle level and talking about government and civics, it's wholly dependent upon census, population, and how to be equitable throughout the Commonwealth. Those borders and boundaries swing after every 10-year census, but I would like the clerk to be a little more articulate on that.
That's a good question. Glad you came forward. East Long Meadow has always been split precincts since I've been here, and also for the years before that. I think back, don't quote me, maybe the 60s or 70s, but for the last 50 years, we've always been split precincts. So we've had representatives to handle precincts 2 through 4 up until 2012, and then it was precincts 2, 3, and 4, and then a state representative to handle precinct 1. And what happens with it, the state representatives all comes down to population of who they represent. It's 42,500, I believe, is the number of constituents which Brian Ash represents and Angelo Pupolo represents for their the Hampden District and the 12th Hampden District.
Mm-hmm.
In East Long Meadow, it's always been split. You know, I've lobbied not to have it split, but again, it's at the state level. It's a discussion with maybe Senator Lesser and the state representatives. But speaking to your point, Ms. Hill, the 2020 census is coming up, and if there's a time to do it, to lobby for it, to only have one representative, that's probably the time to do it. And, you know, the way our precincts are set up, we have 4 precincts.
Yep.
We have approximately 3,000 in each precinct, and if they get plus or 5% from each other, then we have to make adjustments on those years to make sure that one doesn't have too many registered voters and one has too less. So, and that's all coming up, you know, within the next couple of years. And all cities and towns have boundaries, and to make a boundary between precincts 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, you have rivers, you have railroad tracks, and on a lot of places you have streets. That's why you have split, you know, Spade Arden, where you're at. One side is precinct 1, the other side is precinct 2. So, and there's quite a few, if it's Elm Street, Maple Street, they're split like that. But again, you know, to get our state legislators involved, and if you want to lobby to go to a single state rep, that's where we should begin.
And when you say we, it's really the council.
Or, yeah, or, right.
Any resident, you know,
Sure.
certainly you can speak to them as well.
Sure.
I would probably have a stronger voice, though, if the council were behind me.
Yeah.
So-
And I think they know that to administer, when you do elections, it's much easier if you don't have a split precinct. I mean, you got to focus and be engaged a little more when you put the ballots together. You don't want to put precincts 2, 3, and 4 in precincts 1 box, for example. But, it would make things a lot smoother just to have, one representative. And again, it's based on their representation of the population of their district.
And I'm just speculating, but it would seem to me that outside of the ballot preparation, there would be other areas that are affected? Or can you assure me no, that my experience as an East Long Meadow resident is equal to that of anybody who lives in precincts 2, 3, or 4?
Yeah,
It is.
yeah, basically,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. It just seemed a little bit odd when I did my research and to discover we're clumped with Springfield. Precinct 1 is clumped with Springfield, and I just wondered if that meant, what that might mean in terms of.
Right, it used to be precincts 1 and 2, were, up to 2012 was lumped in Springfield. But then again, precincts 2 and 4 are lumped with Munson, lumped with Hamden.
Yeah.
So it's, again, it's that state representative's number of constituents which they represent.
It really is about numbers and more to balance it. But certainly, if you're lumped with Springfield, as you said, that does not mean your state rep says, oh, I'm not going to worry about East Long Meadow, that it's only the Springfield. They do come here. We have excellent reps, state representatives
Yes.
and a senator. So they do seriously take the piece of East Long Meadow that they have into consideration in when they lobby at the Capitol and stuff.
Well, okay, here's a hypothetical. When last year, I don't know how many months ago, there was the possible retail outlet that wanted to come into town. And there was a lot of sort of discussion about whether that was wanted or not, and if so, where. I mean, could that be an issue that might affect me adversely by being in the one precinct that's separate from the rest of East Long Meadow? No.
Absolutely
Really?
not.
Nothing different? Okay.
No.
Okay. And the last question, back in the history of the town, were we never all together?
As far as I can remember, as far as the numbers I've seen, we may have been, I don't know if you guys remember Iris Holland, Mary Rojanus. I mean, for years, they've always had precincts 2 through 4. So it's been split as long as, I'm going to go say 50 to 60 years ago. And maybe before that, we were all together with one rep. But as far as I can go back, we've always had that split between the state reps.
Just because of population?
It really is. Not
You need-
specifically our population
Right.
as much as the whole of the population. So it breaks out into certain amounts of people, and one town isn't going to make up enough for one. So it then gets further
This is the
split
state
down.
you're talking about.
Correct.
So the
Right.
state overrules the town,
At this
Well,
point.
it's done by
Yes.
the state legislature.
Right.
They're the ones.
but if we went as a council or as a resident to the state and said, wow,
You
can
know,
we think this?
why don't you come see me and we can, I'd love to talk to you more about it and maybe give you some information and give you some ideas on how you can talk to somebody that would be really effective.
Gonna say that.
I'm in town hall, so is Tom.
Okay.
We'd love to see you, really.
Okay.
As well as give the contacts for
Right.
That's what I
The
do.
representative.
Representatives Ash and Pupolo, who are truly both very present at town
Yes.
events
Yes.
and do have the pulse of the
Yes.
the
Well,
town
what's
equally.
ironic at that is I'm pretty sure if I went back through my cyber trash, I was recruited by Brian Ash to go out campaigning for him, which leads me to believe they don't even know the difference between.
Well, he wanted you to go across the street.
Well, actually, he wanted me to go to Long Meadow. No, it was in Long
Well,
Meadow.
Long Meadow, Brian has that whole
He has that
town is
whole
all
town.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, did they realize when they were asking me to volunteer for them that they were actually
It
stealing
could be
me
more
from
party
Angela?
driven
You're right.
than district driven.
Right.
But come on by.
I will. I
I'd
will.
love to
That's
see
okay.
you.
Okay, anytime, right? Monday through Friday.
Well, you might, yeah.
Okay.
It's always best to call.
I have a great schedule. It's a bit challenging, so
Okay.
give a call
Check first.
and absolutely.
Okay.
We'll make time for you.
That'd be great. Okay.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott.
Also under public comments this evening, discussion of trash removal contract and the 35-gallon limit, which is undoubtedly a very hot topic in East Long Meadow this week in particular. Mr. Chabotaroff, please come forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad to hear that it is now a hot topic all over East Long Meadow and not just in my neck of the woods. Hi, my name is Sergey Chabotarev. I live on 38 Lenox Circle. And I just came because as a concerned citizen, because we've been, as I'm sure a lot of other people have been getting, we have a 50-gallon trash bucket, which is one of those really sturdy ones that last for decades or a lifetime, whatever they say, you know, and it's actually, to me, I always thought that it was more friendly to the trash department because the recycling department, because it was easier to pick it up on the track on the truck. But now apparently I hear that it is illegal for them to do that. But basically, the point that I'm trying to make here is I know that I found out that the recycling contract is up for renewal in 2019. And I was hoping that we can do something about this. Now, one of the items that I wanted to propose, which I think would be a good idea to move East Long Meadow into a more recycle/waste-friendly community, would be the concept of composting. And this is something that's already introduced and has been around for years in New York City and other places. So I just right now, maybe I haven't done enough research on it, but I don't know any negatives of why we wouldn't be able to introduce that here in East Long Meadow. Not sure. Also, I haven't done the research in terms of the costs, you know, between the difference between, you know, having the composting adding to the rest of the waste removal contract. So, but I just wanted to also say that my concern is, as a family, we don't have a big family, and we try to recycle as much as possible, but to have 3 bags, but this is what it fits into the 35-gallon container, is just, it's an incredibly low amount. And then we end up having to buy if we're not allowed to use our gallons, we have to go and buy the bags, the East Long Meadow bags, and that costs money. So to me, and then we have to get rid of our trash barrels now and replace them with the smaller ones if we're going to start getting fined. So my proposal to this would be, can we do something with our new contract to make it more friendlier for the town in terms of the size? Maybe even, think about, and I don't know, I haven't gone into the cost, but maybe something that would be a little bit more costly for us as a town, but meaning we'll have reduced amounts of bags that we're going to have to go and buy. And I'm sure administering these bags in all these different stores has its cost as well. So that's basically my proposal and what I wanted to voice as a concern today.
Well, thank you for that. We appreciate that kind of feedback. I'm aware that the town hall today has taken an abundance of feedback, probably positive like yours, but assuredly, I'm not so much negative, but agitated because of the frustration involved. And with the trash contract just a year out, our health department, who will be evaluating that contract, is it?
Health and
Health department
correct.
and the town manager. I am sure that all of that will be taken under consideration, and the cost factor will be balanced against, as you said, bigger barrels, less green bags, or how to, find a happy medium where everyone is amenable to it, to the extent that you can please everyone. But at the same time, sensitive to the recycling obligations, as well as to the dumping fees that the town has to pay for trash removal.
Yep.
So that will all come into play in this next year as that contract starts to come into its third and final year.
I would be, by the way, I would be more than happy to put in some of my own time in terms of any kind of research or anything like that that
Oh, that's
you may
awesome.
possibly
That's
need.
excellent.
So
So-
please write down my name and
I've got your name.
contact me anytime you would like.
Okay. Can I, while we have this going on, can I make a suggestion? One of the things that is really an easy transition, I know that the 35 gallons is difficult, but the bigger barrels that you have, we have stickers that have recycle on them, and that really is part of the point of the lesser trash, is to recycle, take as much as you can out of the trash stream. You can take your bigger barrel and convert it to a recycle. They will take it if it's got the stickers, and we've got them in my office. Convert the bigger one and get the 35 gallon.
No, that's a great
So-
suggestion. I'll do that. To tell you the truth, we actually have more recycling out there every week
Right.
than we do of trash. You
So-
know,
so you
we only
can-
have one barrel, and most of the time it's not. It's a 50 gallon, but most of the time it's not filled up. Maybe sometimes, you know, when we
But
have
you know,
a-
with cardboard especially, that takes a lot of room in the trash, in
I
your
never put,
recycling.
Never
So
put that in the trash. I always it's.
Put one of those
I spend
recycle
sometimes
stickers.
hours,
Putting up-
you know, because the guy asked me, he's like, "Can you
Tearing the
please
boxes up."
make sure that it's in like this?" So I'm in the garage, you know, cutting it to the specific sizes and make sure I'm putting.
You
This
sound
is why
like
it's
an
this is why
ideal
it's a bit
trash
frustrating to tell you the truth, you know,
I
because
agree.
you know, when we went to see someone at the town manager, the woman there, she goes, "Well, me and my boyfriend, we only do about one bag a week."
Well, yeah, but that's not a family.
And I'm
That's
like,
not indicative of an average
okay. I'm
family.
like, that is just not
Different.
gonna happen. I'm sorry, not gonna happen.
So, if there's something else that, certainly composting, we talked to the trash company a couple of weeks ago, we had a big meeting with them. They said, right now, composting is not something that they do, and that it is very, very expensive. I think at the state level, it's not available at this time. Something that they're looking into, because trash is going to be a bigger issue every year and get more and more
Yeah,
expensive.
I don't know why they don't think
So-
about composting, because
I think they've
composting has
thought
been
of it.
around for centuries, and it's a great method to recycle. So I
Yeah.
don't know why they.
It was the original
think
recycling
that's
stream.
right.
Yeah.
Truly.
Was
So
besides the
thank
street.
thank you for your
Thank you
thoughtful
for your
comments.
time,
And if
No
you,
problem.
and we'll
Thank you for your
absolutely
time.
take you up on your input.
could you, I don't want you to say to everybody, but could you give me your phone number?
Sure, it's 413.
You don't mind if other people call you? Okay.
Paul knows as an accountant, we don't mind giving our phone numbers out. 413-219-4246.
Plus, people are gonna call you now to ask you to take their cardboard and make it into a
Yeah,
smaller
I can put that cardboard.
I'll put that on my
There you
resume.
go. For after
Thank you
April
so much.
15th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Thank you.
ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy your evening.
You too, thanks.
Under number 4, council comments.
I have one.
Yes.
To the chair. And, I can understand where they're coming from, because we essentially go from a family of 2, and then the kids come home, and we're a family of 4, and it's a massive difference in the trash output. It just is. So as much as, we try to recycle and, be diligent about it, and I have to get a barrel before Thursday, because mine's too large, but I don't fill it, and I always put the green bags out because, we've been trying to be compliant. But the one point of that is that a few people that I've heard it from, one today at the gym, this is not something new. This was never something new. It's just that we were having difficulty getting the trash collector to really enforce it. So it's been a long-standing problem, and we didn't make any changes recently.
No.
It's just now we have to enforce it because of the cost implications to it. What we budgeted for the fiscal year, what we're projected to spend. Amy explained, some of the tonnage has gone up, but recycling has stayed flat. So we're kind of out of balance as a community, and I think we do a good job overall but we kind of plateaued with recycling, and so that's the result of the tonnage going.
Can I make an additional comment to that as well then?
Well, it's
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that, to to me, I don't understand then why it is against the law or against the contract illegal for the guys to use the fork on the truck to pick that up. Because what happens then is, I know our trash guy quit because he says, my back is shot. This was his exact words. My back is shot, I am no longer doing this anymore. So instead of having guys shooting their backs out, which can then lead to disability claims, whatever, early retirement claims, money for which the taxpayers will have to pay for, why don't we have a contract where they're able to pick this up with a car, with a truck, and then they don't have to break their back as they're doing that? I think that's a good suggestion.
Yeah, and I can't speak to that. I can tell you that most of the cities have those. I don't know why we don't have that. That's not,
We inherited the
Yeah,
contract
we
that we
inherited-
have, this
yeah.
whole group.
so I
Yeah.
can tell you the one that delivers to my house doesn't have an arm to pick up
No, I
the
think
trash.
that's
They don't.
specific
these
to the
vehicles
equipment, right?
Yeah, so that's a, sorry, I
Whole-
can't answer
whole
that
other
one too.
discussion,
But
right.
yeah, no, I do appreciate where you're coming from, and others as well. It is, we're going through a lot of green bags when the kids are home.
Yeah.
So,
I would just like to add one.
Sure.
Around town, you might see some of these trucks that are picking up trash containers like that. I believe Maryland, over at the Elms, it's being done, but that's paid for by a private entity. So there was some confusion on why are some trash bins being picked up by a machine and why are some being manhandled. So again,
No, actually,
it's
the
being
ones
privately paid
The
for.
ones on our street that does have the arm, and they did do that before. Now they're saying they're not allowed to do that anymore.
Well, if it's still being done, it's privately paid for, is what I'm saying. It's not
Oh.
part of the town, so.
And that might, the response that you were given is likely a condition of the present contract we're under.
I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Yeah.
Take care.
You too.
Anything else from council comments?
I do have one quick thing, but it might fall under further down on where we're talking about what we all kind of expectations for the FY20 budget.
Okay.
So I can just wait for
Sure.
that then, because I did
Yes.
speak with DPW and the
Okay.
building inspector today about
It's
that.
probably, if it's related to the budget, it's probably
Yeah.
better there.
So I'll just wait for that then.
Okay. Moving on, town manager's report.
So good evening, everyone. I hope you all had a nice Thanksgiving. Didn't produce
of
too much
trash, lot of
trash. And certainly, although I have a report that I did last Wednesday, trash has been the focus of both, everybody in my suite of offices the last couple of days. We will get there, and we do have to address next year's contract. A contract like that, just so that you start thinking down the road, although I have authority to enter into contracts, one that is that all-encompassing for the entire town is something that I would be working hand in hand with the council to make sure that we're all on the same page. So put your thinking caps on as to what you all think is practical. As you said, Joe, it's a balancing act. We don't want to pay too much for our trash. We want to put stuff into our recycling stream, but we also want to give our residents the service that they deserve. So it will be a tricky balance next year. At some point, I'll get a copy of the current contract to you all, and we can go from there. I'd like to be, I'm sorry?
This is very good.
I'd like to begin my report this evening with an introduction of Scott Burns, the new Emergency Communications Center Director in East Long Meadow. I've attached biographical information that he provided and have asked him to give the council a brief update on what he's been working on since coming on board November 19th. It is not just since November 19th, even when he was still employed by his previous town, which was Holyoke. He was working on things for us here as well on his days off. So, Scott, a great asset already to the community.
Welcome.
First, allow me to thank you for having me here today. I'd like to thank Town Manager Denise Menard, Police Chief Jeff DeLessio, Fire Chief Paul Morissette, and IT Director Ryan Quimby for offering me the opportunity to serve the residents of East Long Meadow as their Public Safety Communications Director. The selection committee's commitment to public safety is obvious by the amount of time, effort, and energy that they have put into establishing a civilian dispatch here in town. As you'll see from my biography of experience, I've spent 18 years working in the city of Holyoke, outside of Springfield, probably the second busiest call center in the area by volume of calls and types of service. I mean, you just have to read the paper to see the kind of stuff that I've dealt with over there day to day. I bring experience in training and hiring and scheduling personnel from there. And the transition to civilian dispatch here in town will allow police officers and firefighters who are currently assigned to those duties to be freed up for other assignments. This will hopefully save the town and direct overall personnel costs as a result. As part of the transition, I've taken steps to implement wireless 911 so that the East Long Meadow Emergency Communications Center will now join approximately 171 other public safety answering points in the state, directly receiving their own cellular 911 calls rather than having them transferred to the state police as they currently are. That means that when someone calls 911 on their cell phone in town, those calls will come directly here to someone who is familiar with the town's geography, streets, landmarks, businesses, and that can result in saving valuable time in an emergency situation. The only other neighboring communities right now currently offering this are Springfield and Long Meadow. This move will also allow us access to additional state grant funds through the state's Wireless Direct program. In addition, the state's going to be rolling out their text to 911. That's going to be coming across the state, so pretty soon people will be able to send short text messages to 911. This could be anything from a domestic situation or active shooter incident where they can't talk. They can then start sending short text messages to 911. We're currently in the process of hiring our staff, and then there will be a amount of state-mandated training prior to the transition taking place. And it's my hope and goal that most of the residents here in town will not see much of a change, that when you call 911 for police, fire, or medical emergency, you're still going to get a live person who's going to send police, fire, or medical emergency. Most of the work that dispatchers often do is behind the scenes without recognition, but make no mistake about it, we're providing a valuable service to the town in terms of improving upon technologies and processes that are in place currently to provide the residents sort of a seamless transition between the current arrangement and civilian dispatchers. Lastly, I'd like to say that it's been a welcome change for me, coming from a busier city like Holyoke to a very friendly and welcoming town. Everybody's been very nice and welcoming so far, so it's been a welcome change for me. And I hope to offer that to the residents of East Long Meadow when they call for police and fire service, that they're still going to have that welcoming town feel to it. I consider myself to be very approachable and always open to suggestions and ideas. So if you have any, feel free to reach out and bring them to me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to East Long Meadow.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Scott. We've received official notification of approval of the current tax rate of 20.55. This rate is less than the 20.77. I know that Sarah has always said she estimates on the high side for expenses, on the low side for income, so that we'll never have to come back and say, we ran out of money. So, it was less than the projected for this year's budget during deliberations, and a reduction from last year, which was 20.94. Although a number of employees have met throughout the year to refine East Long Meadow's emergency management policies and procedures, our most recent meetings have discussed potential needs as they relate to winter storms. I really just wanted to let everybody know, and I've listed here the different departments that are involved, that we have a great, very proactive team and a great plan in place. So unlike what many communities experienced in 2011 with that October storm, where it was, gee, we should have thought about that before now. There has been a lot of thought put into emergency management going forward. So I think we are really prepared and very proactive. Members of the Health Department and I met with representatives from Republic Trash to review the status of the service in East Long Meadow. All agreed that service has improved and the trash contract is being followed much more accurately. The trash and recycling mailer that I gave you a copy, I think you probably already got it in the mail, but some people said, as they came to tell us that they didn't know anything about it, oh yeah, I think I got that. So we'll give them a second one just in case. It was reviewed by both us and the trash hauler to be sure that we're on the same page across the board. Now that doesn't mean that as you have a particular driver, he's not sure exactly how it all goes, but it is very quick to respond to if there's an issue. Either they report it to us or if we get calls, we are very proactive in going back to Republic. So I think we're going to make sure that we stay on top of it, and we have a meeting scheduled for mid-December to make sure we're headed in a positive direction, continuing that road, and that any of the glitches with this whole stricter enforcement of the contract is going okay. It's going to be a rough couple of weeks, but we will get there. Congratulations to Susan Nichols Maciarowski, thank you, who submitted the winning design, and I sent it along to everybody, and there's a copy of it, for the 125th anniversary logo. She described the entry as representing the anniversary's theme of historic past, new beginnings, by depicting, quote, our quarrymen stepping out of the Old Town logo into 2019. He's rolling up his sleeves and ready to continue working for East Long Meadow's future. It was cleverly done, I thought. There's a second logo, a secondary logo, and that is this, which will be for commemorative coins and things like that on the backside. It's a crisper, more, I think, current kind of look, but the 125th committee seems to be, Tom, you're on it?
Yes, they were great.
And Don, are you on it as well? Yeah. So it seems to have an energy and is starting to come to some good decisions, so more to follow, I'm sure. With our health inspector on board for just over a year, the full-time health inspector, I asked for an update on her position. And I've got some statistics here. Since October of last year, Donna Bowman has completed 223 initial food establishment inspections, 63 re-inspections, 49 temporary food inspections, and 26 complaint inspections of food establishments. During these inspections, she observed 213 critical food safety violations, the most common being temperature violations to holding hot and cold food, food stored unprotected, and chemical storage above the food, observed with food and hand sink violations. Although also for efficiency and consistency, inspections are now being done electronically. She actually has a little printer, a portable printer, that when she does her inspections, signs off on them, prints it, and gives them to the establishment right then and there. Similar to what we have found with our building inspector, that he is certainly by the book. He knows what he's doing and how to communicate it. He is also practical and friendly with the community, and so is what I'm hearing about Donna. In fact, I was at a restaurant, not here, the people that will be doing Pasquale's, and he said, I have never worked with such a friendly, helpful town, and your inspectors are great. So that's from somebody totally outside of the community that is experiencing how our inspectors are working. That's what we want for this community, is people that are helpful, but staying within the parameters of what they're supposed to be doing. So that's, I skipped over the clarification and reply from the town attorney regarding Article 6, Section 1 of the town charter. You have my question, which I passed by Kathy before I sent it to the town attorney, and the town attorney is here this evening in case there are questions regarding his legal opinion. He clarified that the town manager's, my responsibility is administration of the department, including an internal reorganization and of a department and creation of a new position does not violate the Article 5, Section 1. He also added for clarification that Article 3, Section 4 states that the town manager should supervise and direct the administration of all departments, agencies, and offices unless otherwise provided in the charter. So if there's any questions, Attorney Maynard is here this evening to answer. So that's my report, respectfully submitted.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 6, approval of minutes. The November 13 budget workshop session, you have those minutes in your packet. I'll entertain discussion, whether it be edits, additions, corrections, what have you.
Yeah.
Are there any comments?
Through the chair, for the sake of completeness, this discussion, as mentioned in that budget subcommittee meeting, I move to add and amend the following language to read. It's on page 2, approximately paragraph 7, where it states what I said. It says, Councilor O'Connor questioned the recent hiring of an operations administrator for the DPW and felt that it was a violation of Article 5, Section 1 of the Charter, Organization of Town Agencies. He felt since this was an organization of the department, it had to be council approved first. It was felt by Ms. Menard and some councilors that the organization didn't change and it was within a department. Ms. Menard added that relative to the budget, there was no impact from the hire and will be absolutely corrected if needed to be. My recommendation for completeness is to change the first sentence or two of that. Councilor O'Connor requested the recent hiring of a water and sewer commissioner. Ms. Menard stated it was titled Water and Sewer Administrator and the Operations Administrator for DPW. So I'd like to recommend that those be put into the record.
Any other questions on that? Is there a motion to add that in for the sake of completion?
Yes.
Those are your words?
Yeah, it
I'll
completes.
make a motion to add that in, because obviously, like I said, the record speaks for itself, and you were the one who spoke, so.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Further discussion before we vote?
What exactly is the motion?
Just to
To
make
To add the language
Change the
that,
verbiage.
The verbiage,
No, I just missed, so it was the title?
yeah, it was to add the Water and Sewer Commissioner title in the statement.
in the clarification.
Yeah.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. Motion carries 7-0. And now I'll entertain a motion, if there's no other additions or corrections, to accept the minutes as amended for the November 13th budget workshop.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of accepting the minutes on November 13th, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. Motion carries unanimously. And now the November 13, 2018 open session minutes, those as well are in your packet. Any discussion relative to additions or corrections? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the November 13 regular session minutes.
So moved.
Motion's
Second.
made and seconded. No further discussion. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes, oh, I keep mixing, I'm shuffling it
on
up,
track.
keep you on your
That's all right.
toes. Please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
Aye,
please
yes.
say no. Now you're getting me all mixed up. If I say nay, we sound like 7 horses. Please say no. The motion
No.
carries 7-0.
Instead of the
Thank you.
apocalypse.
Don't say no.
Under communications, correspondence, and announcements, is there anything for this evening? Mr. Florence, nothing. Okay, then we are moving to orders of the day. Number 8A, licensing matters, the approval of a one-day liquor license for Masonic Temple for December 24th from 4 to 9 p.m. for the purpose of a private Christmas party.
Kevin, you want to do the public hearing? The 6:30 public hearing?
Oh, my gosh. See, we do need a parliamentarian. We are past our 6:30 public hearing time.
I'll make a motion to
Why don't we-
take 9A out of order.
Thank you.
Why don't we just vote on the Masonic Temple while you said it?
Is there any objection to doing, we were in midstream, and that's totally on me for not watching. We did get a new clock, because the other one disappeared.
It did.
So,
The painters took it.
or the painters brought it back.
So, that being said,
That being said, do we want to,
With white letters.
is the pleasure of the council just to finish the one-day license and then,
That's fine.
with apologies, move back to the
Yes.
6:30 hearing?
yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so is there any discussion about the one-day liquor license application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So I'll make a motion to approve a one-day liquor license for the Masonic Temple for a Christmas party to be held on December 24th, 2018, from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the one-day liquor license for the Masonic Temple for December 24, from 4 to 9 for a private Christmas party, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. The motion passes unanimously. Again, with apologies, I'll entertain a motion to move out of order to attend to the matter of our 6:30 public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of moving out of order?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is unanimous, so we will go to the 6:30 public hearing, which is the proposed acceptance, local acceptance of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8J, that will establish a Commission on Disabilities, and for the record, this is the second reading. Before I open the meeting, let me introduce the council members from left to right. Councilors Federici, Manley, Anderson, Hill, Kane, O'Connor, and Ford. Again, this meeting is being recorded, so when the public is invited to speak, again, we'd ask that you come to the microphone and state your name and address. At that point, I will close the public session of the hearing, and then the council will engage in discussion, followed by a potential action for that. So now I will open the public meeting and ask our clerk to read it into the legal notice into the record.
The East Long Meadow Town Council will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 27th, 2018, at 6:30 PM in the media room of the Council on Aging building located at 328 North Main Street to address a proposal local acceptance of Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8J, that will establish a Commission on Disabilities. Information related to this proposed bylaw is on file with the town clerk and available for review by the public. For the council, Thomas Florence, clerk of the council.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, I will entertain any comments or input from the public. Carolyn, would you like at this point to, since you and Denise are kind of authoring this project?
Sure.
Would you like to talk about the pros and cons? We didn't really get to that the last time, so you're more than welcome to say that now.
Yeah, and I can just summarize again, since it's a second hearing. A Commission on Disability is a section of the Mass General Laws that can be adopted by any community. And that's a commission that is made up predominantly of those living with disabilities or a caregiver that affects a family member. And so its purpose is to be an advocate for those living with a disability in the community, to help research, gain resources to educate people in the community, businesses in the community, the public, my peers as a department head, how to address any barriers, whether it's for sight, whether it's for wheelchair, any of those type of barriers, that any type of programming or services that we provide is accessible. It is strictly a recommendation, a board that recommends. It is not, we have no authority. I'm not going to say we, because I don't even know if I would be on the committee. And the primary purpose of it is not to have it formed so that we can get grant money. The primary purpose really is to have that commission that many communities in the Commonwealth have, to be an advocate for those living with a disability. Certainly it was a catalyst for East Long Meadow when I did some research to apply for a grant for accessibility in the town hall for an elevator, that it really would have helped if we had the Commission on Disability, because what it does is it shows that the community is making an effort to gain input from the stakeholders in the community, that there is access to any type of municipal services. But it's also to help those that are in the community, certainly businesses, that if we see, or who the commission sees, that there may be ways to make a private business or a restaurant more accessible. It's not an authority, they can't tell them what to do. They can make recommendations, and there's a way to educate businesses. There's tax credits involved when a business or a restaurant or anything like that tries to make their building more accessible. There is significant tax credits available.
For the owner of the business.
For the owner of the business, yes. So, and I know that there was a letter sent for public input regarding the commission, and I know you have to, I'm assuming you have to read the whole, do you have to read it again?
We have copies of that letter. I believe that was forwarded to us the other day.
I didn't know if you needed to read the bylaw first.
You have to read it for the second time.
Yeah, if you wanted to do that first, or you want me to just keep going? Keep going?
Don't address the letter, but continue with your presentation. We'll get back to the letter in a second.
So, well, part of my presentation, if it's okay, I just got the questions this morning, the concerns, so if I could just pass out some, I would have loved to have had you beforehand, but I just
got the letter?
Got the letter today. So if you don't mind, what I'm going to pass out to you is two things. One is kind of a summary of what local commissions on disabilities do, what their role is, and it also has an explanation of what that tax incentive is for businesses, and it explains what the Massachusetts Office on Disability is, what their role is. So if that's okay, I can pass this up to you.
Mr. Florence, should I have had the whole bylaw read first? There's way too many steps in this public hearing process.
Right, it was probably good to do that first, however, it's up to you, and it's no problem if we do read it in later.
Okay,
as long as
it'll
it's
get read
ready.
in. Right. One more, Karen.
There's one more. This is just a copy of a template of a sample of what the bylaw would look like for that commission. And it also summarizes what the commission's role is. And what I want to emphasize is it is not, there's no authority. Our role is to make recommendations. And again, I apologize for saying our.
We understand,
It's
noted.
The commission's role is not to, there's no enforcement, there's nothing that they can tell anyone to do. It only is, sorry, I should be doing guess I should be talking right to you. I apologize. Its role is to give recommendations, educate the public, educate businesses, educate peers, other departments. Our role is to give any of those recommendations or something that we see that needs to be addressed is to give it to the-
Advocacy.
Advocacy is
Yes.
to give it to the town manager, and then the town manager presents it to you, but the town manager is really the person who makes those decisions. It also, and the commission is, there is no, if there was something that needed to be addressed as far as a barrier was concerned, that needed to, whether it was someone couldn't access a program because there wasn't a ramp or something, the law for the American with Disabilities Act tells a community that you have to do due diligence to make it accessible, but if for some reason it's a historic building, you can't make that type of change, or the cost would be, you know, it wouldn't be able to be affordable. You have to do the best you can to make it where you would move a meeting to an accessible area like this. So that is, I didn't emphasize that enough at the last public hearing, so I just wanted to go over that because that was some of the questions that one of our residents had about those areas.
So I have a question for you, and that
Sure.
is on one of the first handout, and it's in color, which is a good thing. There is a map of Massachusetts and the 351 cities and towns, and highlighted in blue are the towns who have previously adopted a Commission on Disabilities. Is it fair to say it's almost, I'm trying to come up with a visual quick figure here, close to 50% of the communities in this town,
Yeah.
in the state?
I would say so.
40 to
You're right.
50%?
It is difficult to look and see, yes.
Let me try this.
But anyway, it's obviously something that cities and towns appear to be moving forward to embrace.
Yes.
That's a fair statement.
Madam President.
Before, I want to, because I've already kind of made a misstep in the steps, the 9 steps to the hearing protocol. Is there any additional comment from the public? Mr. Henry, I know that you sent a letter in, very well-written and pointing out a number of extremely important points. Would you care to just highlight some of your thoughts for the council now? Everyone has a copy of that letter that was given to us yesterday. It was in our email.
Pat Henry, Ridge Road, East Long Meadow. It was basically just 200 words or so, and essentially it asks questions, say, is this a good thing for us to do? And in my opinion, it didn't seem to be something that was necessary. We have more information now from Carolyn, indicating that some of the risks that I foresaw in my letter, which I expressed in the last time I was here. Perhaps some of those are being met. There doesn't seem to be any real money available directly, except indirectly. If we adopt this, other businesses can apply for it. So my position was not, don't do this. It was look carefully into this to be sure that there aren't risks. And I stated a couple. Apparently, people feel that it's advisory, even though it does say things like advocacy and review policies, and I just don't know. I do not have the background. I have not spent a long time looking into it. I asked the committee and Carolyn obviously to do that, and she has done that. So I appreciate
Those are excellent questions. I appreciate that. Yeah.
And perhaps those questions are no longer relevant. It's not up to me to say. But
We appreciate the council.
I feel I've been heard, and
No, they were excellent. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to comment or provide input at this time? Seeing none, then I will close the,
Can we close it before the reading?
I'm only closing the public portion of
Okay,
it.
but that doesn't have to be read in case the public has a comment on the reading?
He should read it first before.
Okay, then we're going to read it first. Someone say parliamentarian to me later in this meeting, just to jolt my memory.
But we'll have a second one, you can get better, the one right after.
Oh, yes. Okay, so we need to have this read into the record,
Whole thing?
Mr. Anderson.
Okay.
Again.
Put people to sleep, let's do it. All right, Part 1 of the general laws, Title 7, Chapter 40, Section 8J, Disability Commission's power and duties, members' terms. Section 8J, a city which accepts the provisions of this section by vote of its city council subject to the provisions of its charter, or a town which accepts the provisions of this section at an annual or special town meeting, may establish a commission on disability, hereinafter called the commission, to cause the full integration and participation of people with disabilities in such city or town. Such commission shall, 1, research local problems of people with disabilities, 2, advise and assist municipal officials and employees in ensuring compliance with state and federal laws and regulations that affect people with disabilities, 3, coordinate or carry out programs designed to meet the problems of people with disabilities in coordination with programs of the Massachusetts Office on Disability, 4, review and make recommendations about policies, procedures, services, activities, and facilities or departments, boards, and agencies of said city or town as they affect people with disabilities. 5, provide information, referrals, guidance, and technical assistance to individuals, public agencies, businesses, and organizations in all matters pertaining to disability. 6, coordinate activities of other local groups organized for similar purposes. Said commission shall keep records of its meetings and actions and shall file an annual report which shall be printed in the city or town annual report and shall have at least 10 meetings annually. Third paragraph, effective until July 1, 2016. For text effective July 1, 2016, see below. Said commission shall consist of not less than 5 nor more than 9 members. In cities, the members shall be appointed by the mayor, subject to the provisions of the city charter, except that in cities having a Plan D or Plan E form of government, said appointments shall be by the city manager, subject to the provisions of the charter, and in towns, they shall be appointed by the selectmen, except towns having a town manager form of government, in which towns' appointments shall be made by the town manager, subject to the approval of the selectmen, and except towns having a town council form of government, the town manager. A majority of said commission's members shall consist of people with disabilities. 1 member shall be a member of the immediate family of a person with a disability, and 1 member shall be of said commission shall be either an elected or appointed official in that city or town. The terms of the first members of said commission shall be for 1, 2, or 3 years, and so arranged that the term of 1/3 of the members expires each year, and their successors shall be appointed for terms of 3 years each. Any member of said commission may, after a public hearing, if so requested, be removed for cause by the appointing authority. A vacancy occurring otherwise then by expiration of a term shall be filled for the unexpired term in the same manner as an original appointment. The chairperson and other officers shall be chosen by a majority vote of said commission members. Third paragraph as amended by 2016-133, Section 46, effective July 1, 2016. See 2016-133, Section 203 for text effective until July 1, 2016. See above. Said commission shall consist of not less than 5, not more than 13 members. In cities, the members shall be appointed by the mayor, subject to the provisions of the city charter, except that in cities having a Plan D or Plan E form of government, said appointments shall be by the city manager, subject to the provisions of the charter, and in towns they shall be appointed by the selectmen, except towns having a town manager form of government, in which towns' appointments shall be made by the town manager, subject to the approval of the selectmen, and except towns having a town council form of government, the town manager. A majority of said commission members shall consist of people with disabilities. 1 member shall be a member of the immediate family of a person with disability. 1 member of said commission shall either be elected or appointed official of that city or town. The terms of the first members of said commission shall be for 1, 2, or 3 years, and so arranged that the term of 1/3 of the members expires each year, and their successors shall be appointed for terms of 3 years each. Any member of said commission may, after a public hearing if so requested, be removed for cause by the appointing authority. A vacancy occurring otherwise than the expiration of a term shall be filled for the unexpired term in the same manner as the original appointment. The chairperson and other officers shall be chosen by a majority vote of said commission members. Said commission may receive gifts of property, both real and personal, in the name of the city or town, subject to the approval of the city council, or in a city or board or of selectmen in a town, such gifts to be managed and controlled by said commission for the purposes of this section. Now we go to General Laws Part 1, Title 7, Chapter 40, Section 22G.
That's the second.
That's a different one.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
the,
good.
that's the second one.
Got a breather. All right.
The end.
The
They
end.
lived happily ever after.
Amen.
Okay, thank you for that reading. Moving forward now. Is there any discussion or comment from the council?
I have
Mr. Ford.
Madam President. So I read Pat's email from, that was forwarded to us. I've had more than one conversation with him, on the subject, and I don't really ever take lightly of, kind of growing the government, quote unquote. And I try to look and evaluate everything as, is it really necessary? So I really do agree with, the premise of the email, what he was trying to convey to us. I'm not just saying that because he's my neighbor and I have to see him every day. But he does raise a good point. But, the litmus for me is, would we accomplish the same thing without the commission? And I don't think we would. So as I look to this, because we have the ability to do that today, but we're not, because we don't have a focus group. So I think at the end of the day, and I hope this to be true, is that there really are no significant drawbacks that we've missed, and we've tried to vet it as best we can. It doesn't seem to be. So, in this, having said that, and knowing that the focus of the commission will have a very good purpose, I feel, comfortable at this time moving on, but I do understand it, and I think we do that well as a board, that anytime we look at expanding or growing our, kind of governmental footprint, that we do take it seriously, because just to add a board with a bylaw, and then we have another issue of, creating a separate account and doing things like that, like, it is, there is some burden to it, right? The oversight of it, and the making sure that we're compliant with all the rules and things that go with it. And so there is some to it, but I think the good will far outweigh the bad. So I do, appreciate the comments. I know where he's coming from. We've had a lot of good conversations around it, but in this case, I do feel comfortable.
Other remarks? Thank you.
I have one. It's just a simple question. And since it's going to be appointments, that's going to come through you, have you thought about the size of this commission?
I have not, but I'm not a big fan of a huge committee of any kind, probably 5. And I think the value here is that they will be the eyes and ears, certainly the Public Works Director, Carolyn, myself, all the departments. We certainly can, as we go through town, say, geez, maybe we need to fix that. But we're not seeing it through the eyes of disabled in any sense, whether it's hearing or sight or being able to move freely. And those folks will be the ones that will be on that committee. So having disabled there, the eyes and ears that will make recommendations to us, and hopefully will have recommendations on how to fix it, it then would have to come through the whole budgetary process, unless it was a small fix that we could do within our public works, fix a sidewalk or something. So it'll be, I think, a solid addition. There are some committees that were never renewed after the change in government. So we've taken some of those off the books. I think this one a long time ago may have been on the books, although it was not formally adopted this way. There was something, right?
a commission on
Yeah.
disability. It was
Yeah.
kind of like a
Now,
task.
the second part of the question is, since the current boards and commissions have stipends and they're paid, is this totally, completely volunteer, or will they be paid?
I think not, I was not seeing them as getting a
Stipend,
stipend.
So
Not all
there's-
boards
it's
are-
completely-
Yeah, there's,
It's completely
It's
volunteer.
Yeah.
right, right. There are only certain ones that are
Receive
Yeah,
stipends,
not all.
right.
planning board, school
So
board,
that's been
yeah.
given some thought, and you don't see that as a?
No.
Okay.
No, in fact, stipends for committees is foreign to me from where I've been.
Okay, thank you.
I would have a question.
Nice.
Through the chair, we talked about percentages of the state that have joined the commissions on disabilities. How long has this program actually been in existence?
So the American with Disabilities Act was passed in 1993. And so that is a mandate to municipalities to make sure that, and there's several guidelines on how to make a community accessible. Even the senior center here, we had to, DPW was excellent. The building inspector knew what needed to be done to make it accessible and meet the requirements. So that passed in 1993. Since that time, I don't know the exact date that those commissions were, that option was made available. So I can't tell you the exact date. I just know that the law was put in place for to comply with ADA in 1993. And one of the benefits of having the commission is, and I can give you two examples where right now, no matter what, the town of East Long Meadow and any municipality is mandated to meet all of the requirements of ADA, whether it's for an employee, whether it's for a resident, whether
And
you know,
for
it's someone
public
coming into the
facilities.
town.
Right.
So, and I can tell you just that I'm combining the two issues, but Donna Prather and myself from Recreation did a self-assessment of the outdoor accessibility for the open meeting plan that we're working on. And I can tell you that there was many, I wish I had the pictures, and I could send those to you, many areas that are it is not accessible. But all of the fixes, and I think, Donna, you would agree, would not cost a lot of money. For example, you can't access the rail trail. If you're in a wheelchair and you park, you can't get onto the rail trail. And so you guys would not have known that. We wouldn't have known it until we drove around. And there were several areas like that. That's just a simple putting in a sidewalk from the parking lot to that little parking lot to there. So those are the things we saw that you're not going to see every day. Thankfully, Golden Years, who is renovating that corner building at the Rotary, there was some sidewalks and brick sidewalks that were completely covered by brush. They had cleared that out, but that was something that they hadn't. The commission could come to Denise and say, Denise, that really needs to be addressed. But no one's walking around there on a regular basis. So, that's the benefit. The commission will help the town be in compliance. And I do believe, based on what Don and I saw on the outside, is that it's not major expenses. There's not expenses that are going to be tremendous for the town to pick up.
I'm in favor of the program. The reason I was asking the question is because it appears that it's gaining momentum. I mean, you have 50%
Yes, it
of
is.
the state. It hasn't been out there. I mean, the commission, these commissions haven't been, I don't think, formed since 1993. And so I think it's gaining momentum quickly, and I would advocate that it's a good program for the community. So.
Anything else?
I just got a question. You were talking about the rail trail. I believe the official parking lot that's right in the middle of it, there's no problem getting access. is
Yeah,
there?
if you're in a wheelchair, you can't.
Oh, really?
No.
I know the one across my office, which is the.
Yeah, you can't.
That's a
And
little
there's just
difficult.
assumptions like that you can do that. There's also the one that we thought was most ironic was at the Rotary. So if you're going down a sidewalk, there's that the bump that they put in place so that if you're blind or have any other sensory disability,
You'll
you know to
send-
go straight across.
You shouldn't be at that Rotary.
There is one sidewalk
that
that
rotary
goes, there's
period.
one sidewalk that doesn't go to another side of the street, it goes right into the middle of the Rotary.
Oh, yeah.
So those type of things, again, it's not a huge expense, but you wouldn't know it unless you had two eyes going out to look at what the barriers were, and that was for the open meeting, the open. Did I say open space?
Yeah, open space.
Plan.
Yeah.
So this is the role of what the commission would do. It's not to enforce, it's not to
So it's
say.
awareness,
It's awareness,
advocacy,
it's- yes.
and providing
Recommendations.
suggestive support
Right.
to
Yes.
areas that might require,
And
that could benefit from
It's
it.
giving those with a disability a voice in the community.
Absolutely.
To say, we want to get involved, but we can't.
One other piece I wanted to add to this, it looks like the momentum's been gaining on the eastern part of the state,
Yeah.
migrating west.
It's-
Everything
Okay?
always
pretty
does.
blue
Right.
there.
So I'm just bringing up a common sense
don't
point that
exist.
it's definitely building
Right.
momentum
As was
for the right
wagon
reasons.
trains.
Right.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions from the council? Okay, hearing none. I will close the public hearing and ask the council to vote on the matter. So, all those in favor of approving the proposed bylaw? Yes, go right ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the general bylaw to address the proposed local acceptance and will establish a commission on disabilities in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8J, as read into the minutes at the November 13th, 2018, and today, November 27, 2018, council meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, please say no. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to our 640, we're on track, but we're delayed. A proposed local acceptance of Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 22G, that will allocate all funds received from fines assessed from handicap parking violations to the town's Commission on Disabilities, and this is also a second reading. Again, I'll introduce the councilors on my left to right, Councilors Federici, Manley, Anderson, Hill, Kane, O'Connor, and Ford. Let me ask the clerk now to read the legal notice into the record.
The East Long Meadow Town Council will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 27, 2018, at 6:40 p.m. in the media room of the Council on Aging located at 328 North Main Street to address a proposed local acceptance of Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 22G, that will allocate all funds received from the fines assessed from handicap parking violations to the town's Commission on Disabilities. Information related to this proposed bylaw is on file with the town clerk and available for review by the public. For the council, Thomas Florence, Clerk of the Council.
Thank you. And now, for the record, this bylaw will be read by Councilor Anderson.
Okay, General Law, Part 1, Title 7, Chapter 40, Section 22G, funds received from fines for handicap parking violation, deposits in account expenditures. Section 22G, any city or town which has accepted the provisions of Section 8J is hereby authorized to allocate all funds received from fines assessed for violations of handicap parking in said city or town to the Commission on Disabilities. Funds so received shall be deposited by the city or town treasurer in a separate account and shall be used solely for the benefit of persons with disabilities. Said account shall be established by the city or town treasurer and shall be kept separate and apart from all other monies. Expenditures from said account, including accrued interest, if any, shall be made upon the recommendation of the Commission on Disabilities in accordance with the accepted procedures of the city or town for the disbursements of funds, including the approval of the mayor and city council or the town manager or board of selectmen. the city or town accountant shall submit annually a report of said account to the mayor and city council or the town manager and board of selectmen for review, and a copy of said report shall be forwarded to the Bureau of Accounts.
Thank you. I'll now open the hearing for public input. Is there anyone here this evening that would care to offer comment or input on this proposed bylaw? Carolyn, would you like to
Sure.
add any more to
Sure, and this
the
is
rationale?
typically, as it was explained to me, is these two sections are typically presented and accepted together. You know, and I know you heard from our police chief at the last hearing that he didn't see a significant, it's not gonna have a significant impact on, we're gonna get a lot of money from fines. And I think what it is it's just, if a fine is imposed on someone, that money, and I think he was thinking it was more like $150, $200 of a fine, that could go into an account that's very easy for our finance director to put that into a separate account. We have several that are very targeted at the Council on Aging. It's very easy. Sarah set those up for us. And she holds it all. You know, Sarah, I mean, everything, you know what's coming in, you know what's going out, and it's got to go to the right place. And so it would be, many communities use it for education, and that would be our biggest, the thing that was most important to the commission would be to educate the public and our peers again about how do you know, live, what it's like to be living with a disability. And when there's fairs and events that we have in town, to be able to have literature there as well. So it's not, again, it's not going to be a huge income. It's just providing that ability to, if we do get funds in from fines, that we can use it for the purpose of the commission. And again, all of that still has to go through the town manager, and she would have to approve we would be spending that money.
Okay. I want to close the public portion of the hearing and now ask if there are comments from the council.
I do have a question to the chair. Did we ever figure out how much we've generated over the last
No.
2 years?
It was minimal.
But
It's less than 1,000.
yeah, less than
Annually,
500.
plus or minus 1,000 on average?
Less than that.
It's just less than that.
And so the other question I would have is, if it's such a minuscule amount, can we spend the money for this purpose without having to create this separate account and all of this? This is one that I'm like struggling with, because I just don't see what we're gaining by creating this. I know they go hand in hand, but if you're talking about less than $1,000 a year, is it possible that we just say any money that happens there can be spent in that manner and we don't have to do this?
I'll tag team on that. Currently, when the police department accrues money from fines, I'm sure that that's being held somehow on the ledger for the police department. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So,
I'm sure they're being held in a special account now.
right.
What, in establishing one specific for these kinds of fines, means that you have we'll picture it as a bank account, that you say, you know what, this committee has recommended that we change the sidewalk on blank, and that they use funds available within that fining committee, that fining bank account. It'll be swept. There's a checks and balance of, here's the money that went in, here's what it went for. It's not going to be a pot of gold. It's going to be a very small amount, and will only be used for those specific things that relate to the responsibilities here. It's not difficult to do. The fines are probably in an account, separate account now, but with Sarah out on leave, getting Olga to do something like that was not a top priority. So I don't know what it is, but I am sure if it's fine money, it is not going into the general fund. It is somehow, there needs to be a path for every cent that we take in. So It's probably a matter of naming the account more specifically to this and those monies going in there, and it is a very insignificant amount of money.
Were Carolyn or the commission, the future Commission on Disabilities, to write a grant and receive funding? Let's just, for argument purposes,
That's a
say
good-
it's $5,000.
good question.
Does that go directly there, or does it
I
go
can
to a
find
different
out.
account?
I can find that out. That's a very good question. Most grants have a specific way
Purpose,
that you
yes.
have to do them.
Right.
But this, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. This bylaw only assesses money coming from
From
handicap parking
violations, so that would be
Right.
outside the
Would be a
bylaw, you're right.
So,
So, yeah.
again, this is a bylaw. It's not just a rule we're creating. It's a bylaw. And so back to my original question. If it's $800 annually, and we take that amount in, and we spend the money for this particular purpose, can we do it without a bylaw?
I think my concern, Joe, would be that the money that comes in now, it's not designated for anything like this. So that money could be spent, and I don't know, I'm speaking on behalf of Sarah and Jeff, so I can't tell you. But what this does is ensures that it's getting spent on something that is focused on eliminating a barrier, where I don't think that can happen. And
I think you can. I'm sorry. to
Okay.
disagree,
No, I'm
but I
not-
think
again,
Just
I'm
through the
not-
chair, just to keep it
Yeah.
Sorry.
with the protocol.
Yeah.
I do think that we can, I didn't understand that as being your question. I think certainly there are all kinds of unique accounts for small specific things. I don't think we need to do it through a bylaw. I don't know if the bylaw then gives us some ability to do something else, but certainly when some expense came through for a disability-related repair or whatever, we could designate that it comes from account number such and such that, and we don't now need a bylaw to do that.
Right.
For, you all have made those kinds of motions now.
Correct. Paul, you started just,
No, I was just gonna ask, Joe, are you saying we don't need a separate account, or are you just,
No, a bylaw to.
okay, bylaw,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I'm saying.
This is
we can-
accepting this, though, as a
Right.
bylaw, as part of the
Right.
bylaw.
Right, it's the difference between us making a council mandate, spend all this money on this purpose and only for this purpose, versus a bylaw which says the same thing and creates a special account. I guess that's the only thing I'm struggling with. You know, if this was $10,000 a year, I'd have no problem approving the bylaw. I'm struggling with such a minor
Right,
amount of
no.
money and then having to, sorry.
But I'm also thinking, if you read it, it says anybody authorizes what we just did has to set up a separate account for this. In other words, anybody who
You mean in the-
authorized Section 8J, which we just did,
In the first-
and voted on it, then you have to set up a separate account for this purpose, so,
So that answers my question.
okay.
I would just like to, there was some question on the fees created from these violations, and the state, under Chapter 40, Section 22A, gives the town the ability, all the surrounding towns in Massachusetts, to charge no less than $100 and no more than $300 for these fines. So I went into our records here under the table of contents, and if you look at handicap parking violations, and this is just for the record because there was some confusion on it, under 730, it looks like, if this is up to date, that for a first offense, it would be $100. For a second offense, it would be $150, and for a third offense, it would be no more than $200. So, but it is, those fines are a bylaw cite that are issued through a bylaw citation.
that already exists.
So my question would be too, can those funds, anything that's received, and by the way, these can be warnings that are given to people as well, so that's another reason you're probably seeing so little funds flowing in. But can they go into the general fund?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't think we would do that. We wouldn't just deposit that into the general fund. We would want to segregate it, I think.
Does it make any sense to continue this public hearing until we have more specific answers?
Or could you close the public hearing and not make a decision?
Yeah, we could close and just continue, table the vote to another meeting.
Okay.
Because as long as the public
It
hearing is
strikes me
closed.
that we just
Yeah.
still need some more answers, and I do recognize that our finance director is
I can get it.
not going to be back in the office till
That's right.
a while yet, but
can
I would
email
think
her
Don
and-
or if she is able to communicate that information to us, that would be very helpful. So if you have any other questions, and you please forward them to Denise, and then Sarah's usually pretty good about responding to her emails.
The only question through the chair is to see if we can have, for the last tax year, how much money did we really
Right,
collect?
and we need a historical
Not
record of.
Maybe 1,000. I mean, if we're talking a couple $100, then we gotta really kind of
Yeah, we're.
revisit some of this stuff.
If I can just add to it, I don't know if you remember, Jeff made the comment, they haven't really made that a real priority. And that, you know, it kind of sparked his attention that that's something that they would want to address. Again, I don't think it's gonna be a lot of money. I think now that that awareness is there, it could be more. And I would love to have the finance director's input to know that if we didn't have it, because there seems to be, there's some incentive, there must be some reason that communities are adopting this part of it. So I would like to see, make sure that that money that is collected by the fines can go directly to.
I don't know this, I'm just
Right.
throwing this out there, but it could very well be predicated on the size of the communities. And if you look
Sure.
at the eastern part of the state with Boston, Lawrence, all the other bigger towns around there that have a substantially larger potential for violations and collection of money, then now we're talking $10,000+ or more, and the need for a commission and a way to police the money and make sure that it gets where, no pun intended on policing the money, but that it's used, it's charted properly and that it's used properly. But in a smaller town such as East Long Meadow, where overt violations and folks parking deliberately in a handicapped spot, or other violations against people with challenges and disabilities would probably pale by comparison to the
Sure.
cities.
No, I
And so our numbers are, it then defeats, it goes against the logic of why for bigger cities that bylaw would be necessary.
Through the chair. In addition to what we've been discussing, questions maybe for Olga and Dawn are related to a previous discussion we had, which is, again, I know we're challenged with not having our department head there.
That's right.
Yeah, but what other options are there? Because my concern would be, as Joe mentioned, not only creating such a small, creating a bylaw for such a small amount of money, but there's additional resources that may come into play with this. What was mentioned to us was not only the fines, which is a small amount, but gifts. Gifts can be given to the town if accepted by the council. Capital projects would require a substantial amount of money, which would have to come to the council for approval. So I'd like to see what other options there are to maybe specify a specific fund where if we get a grant, because we all know that Carol is very good at that, where's it going to go? And what fund is it going to sit in? In addition to any gifts we get, which could be substantial in nature.
Anything else?
We'll
Then
ask those questions.
Those are the unanswered questions.
those are the unanswered questions. And again, if something occurs to you tonight, tomorrow, send that along to Denise, and we will get a list of those sent and get some straightforward feedback from our finance department. I'm going to now close the public hearing and entertain a motion or a recommendation to set this bylaw passage aside.
I'll make a
Want to
motion.
continue to a public hearing,
Yeah.
say, for 6:30 on December 11th?
Do we need the public hearing? We only
No.
want the council's
You can close it.
edification at this point. I did close it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just basically tabling the vote.
Yeah.
So we can close.
I did.
She did, closed it, so that's done. And all we're doing is we don't have to immediately vote on it.
Correct.
We can just table the voting on it and further council discussion till whatever our next meeting, first meeting in December.
So it would be, the agenda item would be something like discussion and decision.
Correct,
on-
Vote on it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is that? not a
Council decision on
continuation.
bylaw, whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So repeat that again, please.
I'll make a motion that we table the voting until our next meeting for further, to answer the questions that the council has and for further discussion and to vote. And time, we don't have to schedule a time because it's not a public hearing, right?
Correct.
So whenever our next public hearing, our next meeting is,
December 11th.
December 11th.
The motion's been made and seconded. If there's not further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. Motion is approved unanimously. Entertain a motion to go back into regular sequence of the agenda.
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, please say
Aye.
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 Opposed, please say no. Motion carries. That brings us back to item 8B, financial matters. The council FY20 budget priorities. This was a topic we were not able to get to in our November 13th meeting. We met prior to the regular meeting and after the public meeting and reached a point at around 9 o'clock where we decided it was easier to adjourn and give the council members some opportunity to think a little more about their priorities. So that said, I would say the floor is open to any one of you and any one of us to mention some of our priorities. And I know, Jeannie, you are keeping minutes of this, but Mr. Florence, would you also keep a running list of our budget priorities? Because that'll dovetail to our other work from the agenda.
Through the chair, I have
Okay?
some questions, not questions, but some suggestions for the council and Tom as well to take down. Putting a budget together, I think we all should have a specific long-term goal in mind, and that might include comments from our town planner. We should be prepared to adjust the budget or, see how it's working out quarterly. These are things I've done with my own businesses, and they've seemed to work out well to keep everything on track. Ensure our budget meets our organization objectives. Ensure that the organization objectives are conveniently communicated to all department heads. That way all parties are involved. Things I'd like to see too would be debt payoff goals. I hope I'm not going too fast for you, Tom. So, determine the total tax income. So that's kind of a moving target in town. Projects like Chestnut Street could obviously change the flavor of the amounts of dollars flowing in. So that's why I put that in there. Calculate our monthly expenses and analysis from past trends, I think would be something good to look at. And lastly, future plans, inflation, and external factors will all have play a role in how this budget finalizes. So that's it.
Anyone else have priorities they would like to offer?
I can give you an update on mine through the chair. So I did have a chance to meet with the building inspector and head of DPW today to talk about what would potentially go into the project for finishing the stadium, and unfortunately a few things that I had not considered that are just must-have, must-fixes that are adding a significant amount of cost to the project. So Bruce is going to follow up and try to vet a few more things out, and we may have to look at this not as a standalone project, but possibly have to go back to, waiting for the school department to make a decision as to a repair or new high school, whatever they're going to do, and put it under the umbrella of the bigger project. Because there's things like pumping stations and electrical capacity that I hadn't factored in. So, but more to be had, but just wanted to give you guys a quick update after the meeting today, and those guys were doing a great job just kind of educating me on a couple things that we have to have, and then they're also going to contact the state versus, because when you look at maximum capacity happens probably once a year.
If you're hosting the
Maybe-
game or a
Right.
tournament.
Yeah, big playoff game, maybe you're catching more than that, but really it's Thanksgiving Day is maximum capacity. So having to build something, to that, and there's no other field in Western Mass, I can tell you, I've been on every high school field that would meet the kind of requirements, the way that they're spelling them out. So there must be a way to circumvent that without getting penalized, as long as you meet the American with Disability Act. I think that we can scale it down. So that I hopefully scaling it down, the numbers will shrink substantially, but still there's other barriers there. So I'll get back to you guys as soon as I can. And again, I was really looking at this as maybe just
A
a
capital project.
tiny amount in 2019, because we would have to get a company, a third party that would actually create a plan, and then we could build a real budget off the plan. So I'm really looking at 2020, but a small allocation would have to come this year in order to authorize somebody to create plans and a proper recommendation. But if we get to a point where we just think it's the number's too big, then I don't even think it's appropriate to recommend that. So more to come.
Tom?
Yeah, my comments would be, as we're all aware from the last budget workshop, my number one priority would be to use that proposed budget process to ensure that all the information is contained within one binder and that it's updated on a regular basis to replace old information with new information so that we're all in sync and we all have the same information. The binder in paper form and then a hard copy or electronically and hard copy as well. In addition, I think going back to an old principle that I have always stuck with is that when a line item changes up or down $5,000, I think it's very important to identify why. Was there a significant change in needs, requirements, or was there additional cost associated with running that program that we weren't aware of at the time, so we can correct it? So I think that's an important piece to have in there. But my number one, again, going back to, is that budget binder.
Makes sense.
I'll add my priorities, and that would be for the council, in discussion with the school department, to take a definitive stand on the high school project. I would think that we're approaching the time when the superintendent should be receiving notification from MSBA whether the town has been fortunate enough to be invited into the eligibility round, which would then prompt the next multi-step process. In the absence of that, if they don't receive that sort of news, and we've had this discussion in the past, then I would like to see the council make a commitment to some of the essential capital projects that can no longer be just held aside in hopes that MSBA will look upon the town favorably and give us the green light to start the process for a new high school. So that would certainly be number one.
How much duct tape can we buy?
Hmm?
How much duct tape
How
can we
much
buy?
duct tape? Does anybody else have any other priorities? Duh.
Oh, I mean, I'm always, and I said this from, day one, I'm always concerned about making sure our revenue stream is up to speed. And, I think each department head should look at what fees, that if they charge fees, to make sure that it's fair, it's proper compared to what other communities are charging. We talked about the $100 fine for for the parking violation. Is that consistent with towns like Hamden and Longmeadow and so forth for that, or are we still at the low end there? And another issue, again, going back to the planning side, is we get money, Chapter 90 money, for our streets. We have way too many streets that are not accepted. And we are not, yet we are still maintaining them, as we should, because people are paying,
Taxes to live on.
good tax money on these properties. But we're not, for whatever reason, haven't gone out and accepted them. We're sitting on money that the planning board has for streets that are, the street I'm on, for instance, is nearly 20 years old. And we're still holding money because there's still parts that aren't done yet. So we should prioritize, not so much on the budget, is making sure we're getting the money that the town's entitled to. I mean, I heard a ridiculous figure, and I don't know if it's true, that there might be 1 mile or 2 miles worth of streets that have not been accepted. And again, I can't verify it. I'll defer to the town planner to look into that.
So
And
then
if
we're
that's-
not getting the chapter 90
No,
money, is
we're
what
not.
you're
We're only
saying.
getting for accepted streets.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and we should work on saying, like, we were looking at the Fred Stevens property, and that was miszoned, and now they're fixing that. Well, if we have streets that were built in the 1960s and 1970s that maybe don't have sidewalks on it, or maybe, but they're still public, for all intents and purposes, public streets, and darn it, we should make them public streets, and put this into, and get Chapter 90 money out of it. So anyway, that's one of my thoughts.
Through the chair?
Yes.
I just wanted to respond. I would know that any new streets we're going in have been bonded. I mean, the money for
we're
developers that don't
sitting on it.
complete. Okay, so what you're saying, and I would agree, is that if the developer's not gonna come in, then we need to call a bond, use the bond money, finish the road, get it accepted so that
Bingo.
we can apply for the Chapter 90 funding.
Absolutely.
If you think back to our history with town meeting, there was a town meeting yet to occur at that time where the voters were asked to approve
Streets,
various streets. That came up year after year after year.
but we haven't
But
recently.
I can't speak to the history since.
Those might be streets that there's no bonding, no money
It's
there. And
entirely
it's gonna cost the
possible.
taxpayers money to finish the improvements that need to be made. So you'd have to run that drill.
Yeah,
and see.
you're right, because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
we say, how much money are we gonna make if we make these improvements versus how much are we make just leaving it the way it is? So we're taking, these are tax-paying citizens.
There you go,
You
you're
know.
collecting taxes on the residents.
Yeah.
that are on that road, you need to provide the services.
Absolutely. Let's
So that's something
care
that
of it.
can be on our priorities, but can be given to the planner now to begin some
Planning, building,
investigating.
and public works.
Correct.
Public Works too,
Yes,
yeah.
and public
Yeah.
works
All
too.
three.
Now, typically what the planner will do is in a perfect world, is the petitioner will want to get their money back. And they'll go to the planning board and they'll say, I want to get the release of this bond. The planning board usually takes the amount needed plus 20%. But again, some of these ones that are years old,
It's hard to figure that.
It's hard to figure because extra repairs would be needed. So anyway, the planning board would then go back to DPW and say, what needs to be done? There was the top coat, base coat, berm still looking good, blah, blah, blah. And then come back and say, this is gonna be taken care of, and release the rest of it. And then it goes to town meeting, and back in the day, and the town meeting, now in our case, us, we would accept the street, and the planning board would have a recommendation to accept the street.
Yep,
So we kind of need to get that going, because we're losing money.
good point.
Yeah, we haven't done any of that in 2.5 years.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
Not one.
Any other budget priorities?
Well, I just think, one for me, Kathy, is if we get that finance subcommittee back together,
Yes.
which we had talked about, to meet sort of early and often with the school, like we did last year.
Yes.
I mean, we did it haste, sort of cram session last year.
Yes.
And it worked out fine, but it was, I think, easier to get that conversation started earlier the better.
So on that note, we need counselors to volunteer to be on that Financial Matters Committee. It's helpful if, I see some of you shaking your heads, but for tracking devices and appointment letters, it's helpful if you just send me a brief
I sent one.
1-second email. Okay, I'll look back. I don't remember it, but I will look back. Anything else under budget
I
priorities?
think, unless I didn't send it, it's sitting
In
in
your
my
head,
head.
you think.
Sitting in my box.
Well,
Yeah.
It's
Through the
cyberspace.
chair.
Yeah, one, but.
We were also asked to put together a 5 priorities and send them to Tom. Are those going to be part of this discussion?
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
Right. So you have those already?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, under old business, I don't see any. Under new business, the town manager performance evaluation results. So just a little preface to that, typically it is an annual evaluation. which was done somewhat belatedly last year through no fault of the town manager. That resides just on the council's shoulders. So in speaking some time ago with our town attorney, his recommendation was to, in order to sync the cycle properly with the manager's anniversary date of the contract, to do a 6-month evaluation, which is what the council just participated in. We have a 3-member subcommittee who took the individual results of our 7 individual comments and aggregated those and listed all of the comments under the narrative section and sent that to me. And according to our charter and our council rules, annually we have to conduct that report in open session. So I'm about to do that now, and I want to hand one now. If you pass this down, hand this down to Denise so that you can read along. And there's also for the council so that you can follow this as well. A copy for each of you. And again, I'll state that this performance evaluation is for the time period May 9 through November 13th. The first part of the evaluation contains 10 categories of evaluation criteria. Each category contained a statement to describe a behavior standard in that category. And the scale below that we were asked to use was 5 for excellent, almost always exceeds performance standard. 4, above average, generally exceeds performance standard. 3, average, generally meets performance standard. 2, below average, usually does not meet performance standard. And 1, poor, rarely meets performance standard. And NA, not able to rate, which gave counselors an opportunity if they felt sincerely they didn't have enough information to rate on a particular criteria, they could do that. And so the 10 categories were added up and aggregated, I should say, and then averaged. And going forward, under individual characteristics, on the scale of NA to 5, the rating there was 3.66. Under professional skills and status, the average rating was 3.31. Relations with elected members of the governing body, 3.19. Policy execution, 3.45. Reporting, 3.31. Citizen relations, 3.50. Staffing, 3.15. Supervision, 3.48. Fiscal management, 3.37. And community, 3.4. For an average of all 10, if you wanted to look at it that way, that comes out to 3.382. I should back up and say that this evaluation document was obtained last year by our Council President, Mr. Manley, from looking at websites and resources around how to evaluate in the municipal arena. So we are using the same evaluation document to keep it standard throughout the course of the 3-year contract. Under the narrative evaluation, there were 4 questions that counselors were asked to respond to. The way the questions were framed, it asked, for instance, in question number 1, identify 2 strengths that you feel the town manager possesses in terms of results achieved during the rating period. If you do some quick math, and if each of us did 2, that would be 14. Rather than, and in some cases, some of the questions had up to 20 comments because the question allowed that. I'm going to read a flavor of them now for the record, and with the caveat that this document, after Denise and I have an opportunity to sign it, will become a matter of public record. And should members of the public, as it pertains to any one of public contracts, you can have access to that simply by speaking with the town clerk under the Freedom of Information Act. Okay, identifying two strengths. Attendance record at town council meetings and special EL town events. Putting forward East Long Meadow to both the community and government bodies in a positive way. Striving to modernize town hall and how things are done. Skill in dealing with department heads. Ability to work within budget demands. Ability to build a leadership team of department heads who work collaboratively toward common goals. Refining the budget development process to begin earlier and include work sessions with the council. Customer service has improved under her leadership. So that's approximately 8 in that category. The second question, identify 2 performance areas that you see as most critical for improvement. There are 15 here. I'll read about half of them. The town manager must adhere to and follow the town charter, bylaws, and town council rules, and ensure all department heads, town employees, committees, and boards comply as well. Work with the town council in a much more collaborative way. Examples: follow through on direction given by town council, seek their advice, manage the budget process to ensure council direction, and votes are carried out and adhered to by the manager's office and all departments, committees, and boards. Communicate to the council on all issues affecting the residents and news releases before they occur. Seeing that those she is responsible for follow-up on council requests, meaning matters that were brought to her attention and continue to go unanswered or not addressed. Keeping the council informed of changes, resignations, hot-button issues as soon as they occur. Abide by the charter. Abide to the budget. I'm simply reading what's been written here. The English teacher in me will withhold comment. I'm sorry, that's unfair. I shouldn't have said that. But the teacher in me is fighting to get out of.
Want a red pen?
No, I don't have a red pen with me. Take better care in hiring staff in key positions. When staff show inability to perform at a high level, please take corrective action. Develop and implement succession planning to ensure that there is limited potential for the intellectual loss of employees through leave or change of position. The third question, list up to 2 suggestions you would offer the town manager to enhance performance. Work with the town council in a much more collaborative way. Make a point to meet quarterly with each council member, one-on-one. If the member can't meet, at least the effort was made. When I paused a few minutes ago, it was not to only read favorable ones. It was because the one that was next in line was quite similar to what I had just read, and so I don't want to be redundant there. Involve the council or officers in discussions prior to making major decisions. Put the town hall staff back to original state. Adhere to the budget. Continue to work hand in hand with the council. Keep the council informed of developments with the operation of the town. And the last question, list up to 3 priorities or goals you would like the town manager to focus on for the new rating period. Manage the budget process to ensure council direction and votes are carried out and adhered to by the manager's office. This will assist the council in managing the budget and help to ensure our taxes do not increase. Keep our mill rate in check with the annual budget. Keep the council more in the loop, not just the council president, of top and middle personnel changes also. Keep working on obtaining grants. Return the clerk's office and finance operations to original locations. Currently, this setup is not customer-friendly. Capital improvements to make the setup work is not a responsible use of tax dollars. Consult with individuals with more experience on subject matters that the town manager may have limited knowledge of. Put the town staff back to 90% of prior condition and repair the current morale. Work on reducing non-residents from entering our school system. Look to implement a 360-degree feedback for managers. Begin to develop and implement a succession plan for department heads. This plan will ensure that there is a smooth transition in the event employees leave their positions either due to promotion, resignation, or retirement. And again, that is a synopsis of the flavor of the remarks in its entirety. The counselors have the report, as well as the manager and the clerk. And once this has been accepted by the manager, it will be part of the public record. I want to follow with two things, or a number of things. First, thank you to the subcommittee for taking the time to do this. I will remind the subcommittee that part of the definition that we adopted in our rules last week was, and I think this might feed into that comment about considering a 360 interview, 360 feedback, which is ongoing progress reports. And our ad hoc committee for evaluation, the definition now says the committee ought to meet 4 times a year quarterly with the town manager to do a check of the progress, which personally I think is helpful to both the employee and to the supervisor in any venue, in any setting. Under goals and priorities, there are 20 of those. I'm speaking personally. I think to give an employee 20 specific goals is excessive and could potentially set up that individual for the situation where he or she's not able to complete them all, simply from a time and calendar standpoint. Particularly when you look at a situation that has arisen this week where a matter that's a hot button to residents with the trash issues consumes all of your time. We've all been in those situations where something came out of the blue that demanded your immediate and total attention. And so I would ask the subcommittee to look at those 20 and narrow it down. Some of them, there is some redundancy in the comment, which will naturally eliminate the list a little bit. Or not eliminate, decrease the size. So if you could, between the next 2 weeks before we meet again, bring that down to 5 or 6 that you feel is reasonable. And the last one escapes me. No, it's very important. By our charter and our rules, the council also, after completion of the evaluation, must have a conversation about the manager's compensation. And I deliberately gave you each a copy so that you have time to look it over and see the aggregated input and think about that. And I would like to suggest that the conversation around compensation be delayed till our first December meeting, so that you've had time to be reflective and we're not coming off the cuff, particularly since we still are in the throes of projecting how we want to approach a budget as well. So that said, Denise, thank you for all of the work you do. Having been in a similar situation, it is not easy to sit in an audience with a camera and listen to a critique of your performance. So due credit is given there as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. This is very fair, I think. I think I need some explanation or clarifications on pieces of it, because although it says there should be 2 in each of these. There are, as you pointed out, 15 or 20.
Correct.
So to just kind of narrow what the focus should be and just the wording on some of them. And I know it was just taken out
We've-
of people's comments,
Correct,
so.
it was just pulled
um,
together, and we deliberately, though I didn't sit on the committee, I did have a conversation with the committee about avoiding the temptation to summarize, because then we're
Reword.
putting words in paragraph form that may not reflect the individual who wrote the comment,
That wasn't
their
what I meant.
intention. So
Right, yeah.
we felt it was better to do it that way.
Oh, it's very helpful, thank you.
So I would say that if you would like to meet to get some clarification or input, I'm more than happy to do that.
Okay, good.
And through the chair, I think, as we did discuss it this year, and with somewhat time constraints, but adding some depth to this type of performance and getting feedback from, like a true 360 is not just feedback from employees, but external factors and people that might have interaction with Denise on a fairly regular basis. That's going to add more color, because I mean, if you look at the way that our form of government is set up, it's kind of like a board of directors and a CEO. We're not involved in the day-to-day minutia, right? So there are some things that we're not as privy to certainly we shouldn't be as privy to as a department head or, another committee from another department, another town or someone else that she might interact with on a regular basis. I think it gives it much more depth. It's a little more true, because you see the varying, comments and the varying scores and stuff like that. And I'd be more than happy to put the time in to do it next time. We just need to kind of plan ahead. We had a short runway when it was all said and done, and those things do take time.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Any other comments under this item on the agenda? Again, thank you all for your input on that. Number D2, this one should be easy.
No.
Discussion of
All
the
in favor?
second council meeting in December. We meet on the 2nd and the 4th. The first meeting in December is scheduled for the 11th.
It sounds like a great time, and the other one's probably not gonna be needed.
That's right. And the second one, as luck would have it, falls right on Christmas Day, and regardless of your faith or celebration, even Santa wants to take some time and rest on
Oh, he could
Christmas
be
Day.
here on
Oh, he
Christmas
could
Day.
be here.
And the following Tuesday is New Year's Day.
Right,
so-
and the following Tuesday is New Year's, and for the previous 2 years, the council voted to not sit for the second meeting because it always fell between Christmas and New Year's, and in deference to folks wanting to enjoy their holidays. And with the caveat that if something ultra emergency or compelling in nature needed an emergency meeting, well, then the charter allows us to do that. And so, all that said, I'll entertain a motion to cancel the second December meeting of the council.
So moved.
Second.
I rather doubt there's any
Discussion.
We just have to know if we're saying yes or aye, then we can go from there.
All those in favor of canceling the second December meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. The motion carries unanimously. I would like to add D3 before we move to consideration for adjournment. And that is, it was a discussion I had intended to have individually with you informally over the next few weeks, and that was, this is an organization that's charged with the important business of the town, along with the manager and the clerk. As you know, business today in any municipality is much more complex and has become sophisticated in the need to consider rules and bylaws and regulations and state mandates and on and on and on. All of us at the table have a general ease with speaking in the public, But I will say, having served in a chair-type capacity in a number of other forums, it is very difficult, regardless of how organized you are, to run a meeting, to stick to the agenda, to watch the time, to make sure that the business is taken care of civilly and respectfully and properly, and fold in public hearings and whatnot. And so the question is to the council, does it make sense? Our rules say that we adhere to Robert's Rules of Order, the most recent edition, which I believe is the 11th, or revision, I should say. Does it make any sense for the council to have a parliamentarian, someone who's accustomed to watching helping the council keep focused, in other words? And that takes the pressure off the chair or the vice chair or any of us to, do I stand now? Do I sit? Do I speak? Do I wait my turn? Do I say aye or nay? What's your appetite for that? We would seek someone within our community. A couple of names come to mind. These individuals that are coming to my mind are particularly adept in speaking, in quickly understanding meeting process, and would be done on a volunteer basis, to at least to test drive that opportunity. Is there any? How do you feel about that?
I don't think we need it.
I think we
I think we
pretty
can
much
just find
like your work pretty well today. If any of us were running
Well, I
and finding
figure I stumbled a lot today.
Yeah, but you know what? We're all part of it together.
Right.
Not a
So,
robot.
like I said.
You
yeah.
didn't stumble far.
No.
And, you know, we don't get too crazy. Occasionally, we don't speak through the chair. That's not a major violation.
It is clearly not a violation.
It's not adhering to the strict letter of the rule, but it's a little more conversational. We're not as rigid, and, you know, I personally don't think it's necessary. I think we do the best we can, and we're probably getting better at it. Now,
Yeah.
you know, some days are a little harder with some of the public hearings. And
Well, it depends. It goes agenda to agenda. Some are very straightforward and clear cut, and others will be complex.
Right.
Somebody once told me all rules apply except when they don't. And, you know, take a look today. We had that speaker talking about, the trash and recycling and all that. Okay, he finished speaking, but then he heard Joe speaking, and he stopped at the door and turned around. Now, if we had a parliamentarian, then he would be out of order speaking.
Even the first public comment as
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
We were interacting.
We were,
with
and
her,
we should, and again,
that's not
that's
really
the chair to
allowed,
catch.
but I prefer it.
But he came out feeling connected with the council.
And heard.
That we listened, and we did something. And I think sometimes rules get in the way, and you're hearing a lawyer say that. So I think at the end of the day, it's doing the right thing by our constituents.
And I think if we had a parliamentarian, you wouldn't be speaking now because it's not on the agenda, so we're not supposed to be
You're
addressing
correct.
it.
There you go. See, we're doing it the right way. The way
No, that's a violation.
who we are.
Okay, enough said. We have nothing listed for executive session. And so that said, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
There's 5 seconds and one motion. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. We're silent on that. We are adjourned at 8:08 PM, and we'll be back in session on Tuesday, December 11th. Thank you and good evening.